But we begin tonight with special counsel Robert Hur's report about President Biden's mishandling of classified documents. Having had a day to digest the nearly 400-page report, I can comfortably say that this is one of the most nonsensical, absurd, and outrageous documents I have seen since then FBI Director James Comey's hit job on Hillary Clinton and her email server 11 days before Election Day in 2016. In both cases, the conclusion of the prosecutors was the same. No charges were deemed warranted and no crimes committed. But that didn't stop either Comey or Hur from ladling on superfluous political and personal attacks on what was supposed to be a simple, fact-based report answering just one question. Is the Justice Department going to indict? That's it. That's all the public wanted or needed to know. Instead, Hur begins what can only be described as a political diatribe designed for Fox News like a script for the Five on the very first page, appearing to call out Biden as an egotist by writing, quote, Mr. Biden has long seen himself as a historic figure. Well, yeah, man, he probably does see himself as an historic figure. Joe Biden is a president of the United States. There have only been 46 people in all of America's 248-year history who've served in that role. And not for nothing, he was the vice president to the first black president in U.S. history. So that kind of makes him an historic figure, don't you think, Mr. Hur? And then on page six, Hur claims that a reason that he wouldn't bring charges against the president, for whom he found no crime, was that Biden is an elderly man with a poor memory, going as far as to say his memory was so poor that Biden couldn't even remember when his son Beau died, despite the untimely death of Beau Biden from cancer being a thing Joe Biden talks about literally all the time. Last night, Biden did not hold back in his response.
I was very honored as a man. Viktor Orban. Did anyone ever hear of him? He's the leader of, right? He's the leader of Turkey. By the way, they never report the crowd on January 6th. You know, Nikki Haley is in charge of security. We offered her 10,000 people, soldiers, National Guard, so whatever they want. They turned it down. They don't want to talk about that. Just think of it.
You saw that guy? Biden did respond, and we're going to play that in a moment. But, you know, we're just going to go with what we got on the screen. Because it was news to me, to be honest with you, as I read this report, that being old and having a poor memory was an excuse for not being prosecuted. And you just heard that guy. Somebody should update all the defense lawyers out there, including the ones working for him. Now I think we're going to play Biden. No? Okay. That's okay. Trump, who cannot tell the difference between Nancy Pelosi and Nikki Haley, and who often thinks that he ran for president against Barack Obama, and who statistically is just as old as Joe Biden, has been indicted on 91 criminal counts. Nobody said that he should be off the hook because of his age or his mental infirmity. And the same could be said for Rudy Giuliani, who's being prosecuted in Georgia. How do you explain both of them being prosecuted? Both men are elderly, and clearly their memories are shot. It's simple. Because whether to prosecute someone or not is not about age or infirmity or whether they can remember things or not. It's about facts and evidence. Why did it take so many pages just to say you're not going to prosecute Joe Biden? And why all the personal attacks? Let's just remember, Mike Pence was investigated recently for the exact same reason, and it led to the exact same result, no prosecution. But I don't remember any personal or political vitriol from prosecutors aimed at Mike Pence as they cleared him. And while special counsel Hur felt it necessary to include that very partisan-sounding fodder, it was Attorney General Merrick Garland's final decision to allow the Hur report to release entirely unedited. NBC News has learned that Garland felt that he was not in a position to withhold or edit any information for fear of being compared with Trump's Attorney General Bill Barr and how he handled the Mueller report by quoting selectively from it and dishonestly from it before it was available for the public to read for themselves. But Barr did that to cover up the fact that Trump did indeed do what he was being investigated for. I mean, Russia did try to help him become president. In Biden's case, editing the memo wouldn't have reversed the conclusion. It would have preserved the dignity of the Department of Justice by not allowing it to look like a department at Fox. In fact, it appears that in trying to look nonpartisan, Garland overcorrected, according to former Obama Attorney General Eric Holder, who says the report contains way too many gratuitous remarks and is flatly inconsistent with long-standing DOJ traditions. Had this report been subject to a normal DOJ review, these remarks would undoubtedly have been excised. Hur, a longtime Republican who clerked for Supreme Court Justice Rehnquist and other right-wing judges, left conservatives with something that they could use when the facts didn't play out in their favor. In other words, Hur did exactly what Bill Barr did, and Merrick Garland let him. And then there's the contrast. In Biden's case, he didn't attempt to withhold classified documents from their rightful owner, namely the federal government. With Trump, it's the opposite. And it's not just that Trump took classified documents, which he did, or that he refused to turn them over to the government, which he wouldn't. He also directed his staff to hide those documents and then to destroy the evidence of those acts. Add to that, he lied to his own lawyers about the documents, putting them in legal jeopardy for then lying to the government. And while Trump was rightfully indicted for his actions, there's still a question of whether he may be able to wriggle out of any accountability, given that the Trump-appointed judge assigned to the case, Aileen Cannon, has been slow-walking bringing the case to trial. Yesterday, Judge Cannon was called out by special counsel Jack Smith for making a, quote, clear error in the case that could reveal the identities of potential witnesses and expose them to threats from Trump supporters. Joining me now is David Plouffe, former Obama campaign manager and White House senior advisor, Mary McCord, former acting assistant attorney general for national security and co-host of the Prosecuting Donald Trump podcast, and Jill Wine-Banks, former assistant Watergate special prosecutor and an MSNBC legal analyst. And Jill, I'm going to go right to you because you have the experience of writing a report about potential criminal actions by an American president. How did it strike you when you read the Hur report? Did it strike you as odd?
It struck me as a violation of everything the Department of Justice stands for. It was against every policy. Attorney General called it traditions, but I would say it's much more than traditions. The way that Hur went out of his way to put in a knife and twist it was worse than Comey Redux. It was really terrible. All of the things that you quoted so very eloquently, I would say you have a new job as a prosecutor, presenting the evidence to a jury from how you did that. It was just really unnecessary, obscene, and to say he's a historic figure. He's the president of the United States when you're talking to him. Of course, he's a historic person. And all that report should have said is we did not find evidence beyond a reasonable doubt, and so there will be no indictment. And the other thing that I thought was really terrible was the explanation that, well, we need to talk about his poor memory because he wouldn't come across to a jury as someone that should be punished for that. He's not a witness. He's the defendant. All you need is evidence that will come in through prosecution witnesses. And there is no excuse for commenting on what you think his mental capacity is, except if you're going for a job in Trump administration #2. And so it was wrong on every level.
And, you know, Mary McCord, that's how it struck me, too. Look, I'm not a lawyer, but by now I have read a lot of indictments because Donald Trump just keeps on getting indicted because he keeps criming, right? I read nothing in the Jack Smith indictments of Donald Trump, and there have been 4 of them, that commented on Donald Trump's appearance, the way he speaks, the way he talks, the things he says, right? There's a part in this document where it says Joe Biden took contemporaneous notes of his meetings with President Obama. And then it says some of those notes contain classified information. Then it says, well, he shared his notes with his ghostwriter. And then it says, you know, we don't have any evidence that he shared the classified parts with his ghostwriter, and none of the classified material appeared in the book. So I'm like, well, why did you tell me thing 1 if thing 3 is going to be none of that matters? It literally felt gratuitous. But I have to say, I couldn't get past page 1 because starting off by saying, this guy thinks he's historic. I was like, well, yeah, he's the president. Your thoughts?
So I think that there are parts of this, and I have not read the full 300 plus nearly 400 page document. I've read the executive summary and selected parts. And part of this read to me like what we would normally see in, or not normally, but what would be included in a prosecution memo that is purely an internal Department of Justice document that is created when a prosecutor has finished an investigation and it's either recommending, yes, we're going to go seek an indictment, or we're going to decline to seek an indictment. And in that memo, you would set out the evidence that could be used to support the elements of the crime, but then you would set out all of the evidence that doesn't support the elements of crime, all of the vulnerabilities and weaknesses in the case, and you might even point out things like the defendant could appear sympathetic, which would also mean I'm going to have a more difficult time proving my case at trial. But the thing about a prosecution memo, it's not a public document. It's purely to memorialize sort of the investigation decision-making within the Department of Justice. And Robert Hur knew, because he was operating under the special counsel regulations, which provide for there to be a report that the Attorney General will then decide whether will be made public. And Garland I think has long said, I'm going to make this report public. Robert Hur had every reason to believe that this would be made public, and still included a level of detail well beyond anything even that you would see, I think, in a prosecution memo, and certainly knowing it would be made public, knowing we are just, months out, we are in the midst of primaries, months away from a general election. These kind of information is the kind of information that will be directly used in campaigning, will be directly used against Joe Biden in this election. Even though the bottom line is no criminal culpability.
Republican senators decided they don't want a bipartisan bill to fix the border. What they actually want is chaos, because that's what Donald Trump says he wants. What the hell just happened?
I have a very clear message for anyone using the southern border for staged political events. Don't come to Arizona. Take your political theater to Texas.
You can do a partisan bill in the House, but in the Senate, we have to look at each other across the aisle and then figure out a way to be able to solve this.
Those were the three Senate negotiators, Democrat, Independent, and Republican, on the foreign aid package with immigration changes that's now on life support in the Senate. This week, Republicans proved Democratic Senator Chris Murphy was 100% correct when he said that all they want is chaos because Donald Trump says so. The Senate is voting on a procedural motion to move forward with a pared-down version of the package, aid for Ukraine and Israel, but none of the border provisions. Senate Republicans officially blocked a version with border changes on Wednesday. But that was only half of the embarrassing nonsense from Republicans in Congress, where the words of the week were dysfunction and chaos. Over in the House, it was all about failure. Failure to legislate by declaring the immigration package dead on arrival, and failure to do a thing that they've been talking about for a year, impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. They'll give that little nugget another try next week with a vote scheduled for next Tuesday. Joining me now is Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas. Jasmine Crockett from the great state of Texas, where apparently there is an abject crisis at your border. So why are Republicans blocking the bill they've been demanding to meet this crisis?
Why are you acting as if you don't know? You know that they are unserious people. And what's really very frustrating, and I know that we're going to hear it, is that, well, y'all got money to send overseas and y'all can't take care of us right here at home. All of these cities that are in need of desperate dollars, like y'all aren't going to take care of us. No, right now, the Republicans have said, we don't want to do that. In fact, one of our Republican colleagues said something about, the American people need to feel the pain. They literally are trying to inflict pain on the very people that they say that they want to represent. That's what we're dealing with right now. We're dealing with distractions and dysfunction. And it's really time that the American people say enough is enough. We need people that are going to look out for us domestically as well as internationally.
And you're absolutely right, because, people who are saying that accusing Congress of sending money overseas instead of to the streets in the hood here. No, they're not sending money anywhere. They're actually not sending money anywhere. They're just literally sitting around screaming, what is it Donald Trump wants us to do? And how quickly can we do it? Trump said jump. We need to jump. Let's see what else they're doing. I guess the new thing is The Apprentice. Elise Stefanik seems to believe she has the best chance of being Donald Trump's new hang Mike Pence. Here she is auditioning.
I would not have done what Mike Pence did. I don't think that was the right approach. I specifically stand by what I said on the House floor, and I stand by my statement, which was there was unconstitutional overreach. There was unconstitutional overreach in states like Pennsylvania, and I think it's very important that we continue to stand up for the Constitution and have legal and secure elections, which we did not have in 2020. And the tens of millions of Americans agree with me.
Congresswoman, when asked in a follow-up, well, then fine, can Vice President Harris ignore the election and say, declare Joe Biden to be the president? She didn't answer that. Can you explain what is going on with this woman? I mean, does she, in your mind, believe the things she says?
I need y'all to understand what Republicans are telling y'all. They are playing in your face. It was unconstitutional what happened in Pennsylvania. Remember, it was Philly that they had a problem with. It's always, quote unquote, unconstitutional. It was unconstitutional in Georgia, where he has charges pending against him. And what was his big complaint? Fulton County. It's always unconstitutional when it comes to the Republicans and black folk deciding that they're actually going to show up to the polls and not vote for racist folk such as Elise Stefanik. That is what the definition of unconstitutional is to these people. And I need people to stop trying to act like there is some big, deep thought to be had. The Republicans have made their agenda clear. They are constantly palling around with the likes of the Proud Boys. These people are saying, forget affirmative action, forget DEI. They are constantly spitting in our face and telling us it's raining. And people are thinking, well, you know what? Maybe they are the ones for us. No, they're not. Period. They're not.
At the end of the day, and I think you said it so brilliantly, unconstitutional and woke mean the same thing. And if you don't know what I mean, it means the Congresswoman is wearing the color it means. They mean that. For those of you who are pretending that MAGA is your friend. That's what it means. Final question here. Do you see, just in your community in Texas, people waking up to the fact that that is the case? That, you know, because you do see a lot of people saying maybe Trump is the answer, which makes no sense to me at all. But are people starting to realize that, oh, this is a war against our communities?
I'm going to be honest and tell you that I live in a bubble, a nice blue bubble. I really do. My district is as blue as they come. And my district is good with me and how I govern. So I don't really run into that. I do run into a lack of enthusiasm overall for politics. I do hear things like we need, more politicians that are willing to hit back and hit back hard because the Democrats are right. So I run into a lack of enthusiasm, but I've not run into too many people that have completely given up and said, we're going the other way. But again, I am their congresswoman. I am going to make sure that they know that I am bringing home money. And where did this money come from? It came from the Biden-Harris administration. Who cares about environmental injustice and the fact that they are dumping in our Black communities? It is this administration. So I'm going to bring y'all these millions of dollars to start doing cleanup on aisle 9. Like, I make sure that I educate my district on where the dollars are coming from, and I make sure that I pull them down every chance I get.
Not every person is lucky to have a congresswoman like Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. So your constituents are very lucky. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate you.